Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Jim Beggins here for our Real Beach Talks. It's now the 8th of August. I think this is our ninth one in a row that we're doing it.
Yeah, looks like it. We made it for 9 episodes, Jim.
My co-anchor, Tabitha, is here. And her
Good to
dad,
be
Wayne,
here.
is watching, I hope.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, Dad. And we redid the camera so you're not looking up my nose while I'm talking. So. All right, let's get started. Today it's going to be a little bit controversial. I sent you all an email and given you an idea that we're going to be answering some questions that are largely my opinion. And that's a little bit scary because I've been in real estate through four real estate recessions. The upcoming one, whenever it comes, is going to be the fifth. So let's start with the questions.
All right, Jim. A lot of people look at our area and are looking for investments. And so I'd really like to just talk about three things that every beach investor needs to know when buying over at our beaches. If you wanted to give some advice to beach investors, Jim, what would that be? What are the three things that
The
they
three
really need
things
to know?
that they need to know is or are location, location, and location.
Well, gee, we have a lot of beach communities here. What do you mean by that? Which location over the other?
There's a few sayings that I really like, and one is under all is the land. So, and I also know that people move to Florida for water.
Well, yes.
So it's generally, depending upon your income, you'll pick a place that's as close to the biggest body of water you can find, whether that be a drainage ditch, a river,
Retention pond.
retention pond, a lake.
Oh, yes.
Once we get into bigger bodies of water, we're looking at canal front.
Oh, yeah.
When we're looking at canal front, we're looking at intercoastal.
Oh, yeah.
That is on a bigger, it's on the intercoastal waterway.
Boating and sailboat water. And,
Boating, deep water, sailboat water, racing boat water,
oh, yeah.
Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, yes.
So
That's a lot of the reason they're coming here.
and as the body of water gets bigger, the prices get higher.
Price.
Right.
Yes.
So if we look at where we are here with offices in Sarasota and Tampa and St. Pete, the offices in Tampa on the water are on what body of water? Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is pretty big, right?
Oh, gosh.
All right. What's a little bit bigger than Tampa Bay?
Gulf of Mexico.
The Gulf of Mexico. Okay, so the Gulf of Mexico is more expensive than living on Tampa Bay or on a canal in Pinellas County, correct?
Absolutely. Land is worth more.
Okay, so what if this is true, then what's the next biggest body of water in Florida?
Lakes. What?
Well, on the west coast of Florida, you have something called
The Atlantic.
the Gulf of Mexico. On the east coast, you have the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes.
Let's keep playing.
Okay.
What's the next biggest body of water to the Atlantic Ocean?
What don't ask me?
Pacific Ocean.
Oh, my goodness.
Are there any places
going
in the
that far
United
away?
States that are on the Pacific Ocean?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we take a piece of land, and let's take Pinellas County, for example, and you've heard this before, but a 50 by 100 foot lot in Pinellas County in Seminole or Pinellas Park or somewhere else,
Largo or something.
Largo, is about $20,000.
Fair.
If we move that piece of water, that piece of land over to the beaches and put it not on the water,
Okay.
that lot goes up to $200,000.
Yes, easily.
All right, 10 times more expensive than this stuff in Pinellas Park. If we take the same lot and move it to the canal, it's 400,000.
Yeah.
If we move it at the end of the canal on the intercoastal that's overlooking a mile or 2 miles of water,
Oh, now we're
it
getting
might
close
be,
to 6.
yeah, maybe 6, maybe 8. When we move it to the Gulf of Mexico, it is
1.5 million all day long.
1.5 million. That converts now into dollars per front foot.
Oh, yeah.
So we're talking about $30,000 a front foot for land on the Gulf of Mexico. So where in the state of Florida might land be more expensive than the Gulf of Mexico?
Well, we head to the other coast, Miami.
So
Prices are through
Miami
the
or
roof.
Fort Lauderdale or Palm Beach,
Yes.
you'll find those lots being at $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a front foot. Easily twice as expensive as they are over here. So under all is the land. So if you're going to buy, three things most important is location,
Yes.
location, location.
Okay.
But we'll just count that as one.
All right.
The next most important thing is, and this is tough for people to figure out because most people buy residential real estate on emotion. So if you're buying on emotion, and I'm wearing my flip flops, so I decided not to wear them. So, but I live on the beach, so it's tough. Where was it?
I don't know. Those are some formal flips you got there, but you're going to tell me the second reason why we're going to move over here. The first one we know, location, location, location.
And the second one is investment.
Well,
Now
yes.
this is a tough one because most people buy because of emotion, especially when you're buying residential
But
real
not
estate.
investors. Investors are just looking at the return on their money.
So, but what if someone that's looking for an emotional buy really considered it as an investment? So before you buy, what if you consider that I'm going to have to sell this?
Exactly, and that's kind of what I want to drill down on a little bit, is that we're talking about people that are coming here and they're looking for a safe place for their money that will hold and that they can, at least cover their carrying costs.
Okay, well, a simple equation would be return on investment. So if you were to buy a piece of property in Florida and you wanted it to make money, what's a rule of thumb that we could use to say whether that property makes money?
10%.
If we take, and this is a very general rule of thumb, if we take 10% of the price that we pay for a property, for example, if we bought a property for $300,000, 10% of $300,000 is how much? $30,000 in income you would have to get. General rule of thumb to make it a good investment and give you some return on the $300,000 investment. So you would have to rent it for $30,000 a year.
Yes.
Now, when you were talking about properties along the beaches in Sarasota County or Pinellas County or Palm Beach County, there are restrictions to rentals.
Oh, gotcha.
And the restrictions to rentals are generally dictated by the neighborhood that you're in. So residential neighborhoods don't like to have short-term rentals, people coming in for a week or for 3 days or whatever. So there's a lot of zoning requirements for restricting rentals. So if you need to get $30,000 a year in rent, that's about $2,500 a month to rent a house. That would give you your $30,000 a year. But the $30,000 you have to factor in some vacancies. So you're not always going to get the perfect renter that stays there for a year. Someone goes out and it takes you 2 months to get another renter. So
Yes.
that's not really a good investment if you're looking at return on investment.
Yeah.
The other big reason to buy on the beaches or on big bodies of water is that they will appreciate more than inland pieces of water, of land. All right, so
With the restrictions on rentals, is it usually favorable for the investor to look at something that does allow short-term rentals? Do those tend to turn money better than the ones that are only allowing for a 6-month or a year-long rental?
much better. In most cases, this is real beach dogs. Short-term rentals generally get for a week, which long-term rentals in the same area get for a month. So you can get $2,500 a week for a rental if it's in an area that allows that. Uh, and the same house in an area that only allows annual rentals, you get that for a month.
So really,
So
the
that's a
rental
huge
restrictions,
difference.
you have to find somebody that's very knowledgeable of the rental restrictions when you're looking to purchase,
Yeah, and
especially
that's
for
tough to do
investment.
because you have to go to the cities and ask what their rules are. And the worst thing that you can do is you go to the city and you'll find one person telling you what the restrictions are, and you come the next day to the place.
Well, then how do you determine what the restrictions are, Jim?
That's one of the big problems because it's so uncertain. A lot of people do illegal rentals
Okay.
because now you have VRBO and then you got Home Away and you got
Airbnb.
Airbnb and numerous other sites that will allow you to rent short term.
Well, I heard they've been cracking down on that a lot throughout the cities.
They are cracking down, and the way that some people get away with it is they don't put the address of the property, and all the pictures that they give are general pictures of the interior of the house, and they don't show the exterior of the house.
Why?
So if the city wants to find out who's renting short term, now a lot of the people will put the front of the house in, and then it's real simple to find out where it is. Or they may call on the phone. So to buy a place with the hopes of doing short-term rentals, so for cash flow, is quite risky because many of the cities, if they catch you renting short-term, they will fine you. And in some cases, $500 a day.
But finding the building that allows 1 to 7 day rentals, that's really a good return for the money most of the time, isn't it?
Yes, but the
Like
other
the
side
Madeira
of
Bay
that,
Yacht Club is, set up that way.
Madeira Bay as a condo hotel is set up precisely for that. But you have limitations on how much time you can come and spend. If you find a short-term rental that's allowed, then you can, anytime that it's not rented, you jump on an airplane, come down, use your own place. That's the ideal.
And it pays for itself. I mean, if you can find one that does that, they
Yeah.
really do pay for themselves.
10% of return. Now that is the rule of thumb includes your homeowners association and your taxes and your monthly payments and all that other stuff,
Including the mortgage, all in.
including your mortgage. But if you have a $400 a month HOA in there, it's going to throw those figures off. So the 10% is just a rule of thumb. So
It's important to talk to an expert when you're really going to get serious.
yeah, so I guess if we want the three reasons, best reason, one would be the location. So you want something that somebody will want to use. So
Right.
resort areas are a good idea. And then you've got to determine whether you can get an income or if you want to get an income.
Right.
So, and the third one is look at the price.
Look at the price.
Look at the
We're
price
gonna
and
look at the
consider the land. So,
Okay.
what's next?
Well, Jim, I'm curious because our prices have been going up steadily, probably for the last 5 years. And in some of our areas, it's closing in on peak pricing. So I'm curious, why would you buy in this market? What are the reasons to purchase in a market that you see is pretty hot?
Yeah, I got a bunch of little sayings that I use. This one's from Warren Buffett, and it says, "Since nobody knows the top of the bottom or the bottom of the market,
Yes.
forget about buying or selling there." So we're never going to pick the top of the market or the bottom of the market. But ironically, when I came to the office, on my desk was an email from a company that I subscribe to, and I'm going to read you the first 2 pages of it, which is very short, but it's entitled, "Canada's entire housing market is on the verge of collapse."
Whoa.
A little bit scary, right?
Yeah, considering about 13% of our market is owned by Canadians, what's going on up there?
Probably you guys need to speak up just a little bit. We're having some trouble on the sound.
Trouble with
Yeah,
sound.
so speak up a little bit, please.
All right, we be speaking louder. Can you hear us now?
Okay, Canada's entire housing market is on the verge of collapse. Toronto's housing market is unraveling. Last month, home sales in Canada's biggest city, Toronto, fell 40% in 1 month. This is the largest annual decline since 2009. But that wasn't the only bad news to come out this past month. The price of the average home in Toronto fell 4.6% in July. That's the biggest monthly decline since at least 2000. That's 17 years, the biggest monthly decline. It was also the third straight month that Toronto home prices fell. The average home is now selling for $175,000 less than it did in April. This is a staggering decline, but it's just the beginning. Now, is this meant to scare us? Is it accurate? I don't know, since any decision can be supported by facts.
Yes.
We would have to weigh this with a grain of salt. So, but this publication is pretty factual I get it all the time, and this is the worst I've seen in quite a while.
Well, 13% of our homeowners here, Jim, are Canadians. And how do you think this is going to impact us?
Well, let's go further into this, and
Okay.
then I'll tell you how it might affect us. This is just the beginning. The number of house listings in Toronto jumped 5% last year. Our number of houses are dropping almost that much every month.
We only have about three months worth of inventory.
Yeah, 2 to 3 months. There are now 65% more homes listed for sale in Toronto than there were a year ago. This is a bad sign. It tells us homeowners in Toronto are running for the exits. They're putting their houses on the market. Since nobody knows the top of the or the bottom of the market, forget about buying or selling there.
Yes.
They're now getting scared and they're throwing their houses on the market. If this doesn't change, the supply of Toronto homes will outstrip demand. This will send prices even lower. Most investors aren't taking this seriously, but they should. After all, Toronto isn't headed for a run-of-the-mill downturn. It's headed for a crash. I'm not the only one saying this either. David Mandani, an economist at Capital Economics in Toronto, thinks housing prices could plunge as much as 40%. Mandani also said that the coming downturn will be deeper and longer lasting than previous ones. That's the last thing Toronto can afford now. Local housing prices are now up 218% in Toronto since 2000. So this is called a bubble.
Exactly.
And bubbles don't get smaller, bubbles burst. You can see that Canada's housing market wasn't slowed down by the last global financial crisis. It just kept on rolling. So they didn't have a 2008 like we did. Canadian housing prices are now up 101% since 2009. They're up 218% since 2000. U.S. housing prices are up 85% over the same period. So Canada's up 218%, we're up 85%. Oh, but that's okay, that's Toronto. We don't care about Toronto because we're in the U.S.
13% of my buyers are Canadian.
Oops. If that weren't crazy enough, the average house in Canada is now selling for 16 times more than the average Canadian's income.
They can afford to live in their own town.
Can't afford to live. For perspective, the same ratio peaked at 12.5% during the last U.S. housing bubble. Okay, so that's enough information on Canada.
Okay. How does that affect us?
Well, today it doesn't.
Not today, but what kind of prediction
But
would you give?
how similar is Canada to the U.S.? We're a fraction of the figures that I've told you, but we're still in a bubble, especially in the big cities in the United States like Miami, New York, Seattle, San Francisco, LA, San Diego. Oh, ironically, most of the cities that are on big bodies of water.
Interesting.
Interesting that the money goes to the big cities. On the
Big bodies of water as well.
Okay, So how does it affect us? If 13% of our buyers come from Canada and they can't sell their house, how are they going to move here? Now, do you think Canadians that own property down here might get scared and say, because my investments in Canada are going down the tubes, you think I should sell my place in Florida or my places in Florida?
I
If
wish
they
they
do
would. We
that-
need the inventory right now.
All right, so we'll get the inventory. If they all 13% sell, then the inventory just went up 13%.
Well, we could use it right now. We only have about 2 to 3 months supply. That
So
would not
that's
be
good
so
news,
bad
right?
for us. That would be good news for us.
All right, but then what
We
happens if
consider
our
it, so.
inventory goes up very quickly to our prices?
Well, our prices would take a bit of a dive, I think.
Okay, and what about the people that have been hesitating selling their places because they think the market's going to still go up? If they all of a sudden see an increase in inventory of 10 or 15%, do you think they may say, hey, honey, it's time to get out of here, let's flee, let's put our house on the market?
Yeah, that's absolutely. I think that would definitely be part of the mindset.
Okay. Could it be the opposite? Could it be that people say, okay, well, it's okay what happened in Toronto or Vancouver, that's never going to stay here, and everybody stays like they've been, and they say, well, I think the U.S. market's going to go up, we don't care what Canada's doing.
Altogether a possible as well. I mean, I think our lending restrictions are a little tougher here. I think we've probably put in some safeguards to avoid what we saw last time. So,
Actually, the lending restrictions in Canada are much harder than they are in the United States. They have to have a much bigger down payment in Canada than the U.S.
wow. So we're still not protected, huh?
So we're still not protected. So what other questions do you have? So this is scary. So what happens to, I think it's mostly real estate agents watching today, is that a reason for real estate agents to be scared about what's happening?
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
Well, because for the good news and the bad news. The good news is when we do have a turn, and we will, we're going to lose a lot of agents. But the number of house sales is going to stay the same, guys. There's still going to be 5 million in transactions every year. We're just going to have a lot less competition. And that means that those of us that are working in the industry are going to make a lot more money.
Okay. To piggyback on that, they're saying the laws of supply and demand govern real estate sales. Okay, so as the supply of inventory goes up, the number of people that may buy could go up also.
Okay.
As the number of real estate sales or listings increase, according to supply and demand, what happens to prices? If supply goes way up and everybody's selling their house,
We're going to see prices.
Sell yours.
We're going to have to cut prices.
Prices will cut.
Yeah.
Right?
Compete.
If there is a huge supply of agents and no buyers, what will happen to the supply of agents?
We are going to see them drop like flies.
Okay. The example of that was that in 2008, there were 3 million licensed real estate agents in the United States.
Yeah.
At the bottom, no, 2005, the bottom of the market, like 2011, it dropped to 900,000.
Yeah.
Right now, we're at about 1,200,000.
And everybody's getting into real estate right now, too.
Everybody's getting in. Why? Because there's a lot of money. Prices are going up.
Too much HGTV, if you ask me.
All right, so let's see if it might be better for an agent to be working in a down market.
I think there's more opportunity for the agent in the down market.
Why?
Well, there's less competition. And who controls the inventory? Who controls the market?
Okay, so if agents get more inventory, more listings, and they control more of the market, then they would naturally get more sales. Correct.
Yeah, the number of sales has pretty much stayed the same.
Okay, in a really upturn market, a market that's going up and there's very little inventory, do you think there's more people trying to sell their house themselves or less?
There's always going to be more people trying to sell their homes on their own. We talked about that last week.
Okay, so if there's more for sale by owners competing with agents, the for sale by owner that's selling doesn't have to pay a commission, so they can be more flexible in their pricing.
They can. They can be more flexible with their price, but then they do lose a lot of, well, representation.
So if a for sale by owner, do you think of a person who is faced with a whole bunch of competition, do you think they need an agent more or less in a market that is has very high inventory, lots of competition?
That's when the agent really is worth their money. Because you do need that expert advice. You need that staging advice. You need to make sure that everything is on point and that you're getting in front of the right clients and the international clients.
Okay, so if there's more inventory, more supply of homes, and less agents, is there an opportunity for the agents that are left to make more money?
Always.
When there's lots of inventory and not a whole lot of sales, do you think the agents have more value to a seller than when the market is like it is now?
Oh yeah. I mean, I see the value in having representation, particularly when there's heavy competition.
So if you're an agent, should you be afraid of a normal downturn?
If you're an excellent agent, you should look forward to it because it's really going to be your opportunity. It's going to wash out a lot of these so-called discount agents that really don't see value in their service and truly don't provide it. And the good news is they'll be gone, and there will be an opportunity for those that truly do love and embrace this industry to make a lot more money.
There's another saying that I use that success leaves clues. So we found that when agents are have a lot of inventory, they tend to get a lot more listings. The sellers need us more, so a good agent that knows what they're doing will get more sales. And we know that with success leaves clues, the last downturn, there's about 5 million sales a year in the country, whether they be 5 million sales with a market going way up or 5 million sales with short sales and foreclosures. But the client needs us more in the down market than in the up market.
Yes.
There's also what we call disruptors. They're all the people that will work for less money, that will pay agents more money, that will discount everything. So from experience for the last 2 recessions at least, I found that the disruptors tend to go away when the market is tougher.
They can't compete.
They can't. Right now they can. So what else you got?
All right. What advice would you give to somebody who's a first-time buyer over at the beach versus the advice that you would give to somebody who's looking to retire or just spend their winters down here? Just coming for a holiday, looking for an investment versus the family who's coming down to buy their family beach home where they're going to live. How would the advice differ to those two clients? Or would you be telling them the same thing?
If I were most agents, I'd be telling them all the same thing.
But you're not most agents, you're Jim Beggins, so let's bring it.
It's not a good time to buy real estate right now.
That's what I was
It's a good time to sell real estate right now. Now, the caveat with that is the second part of your question. If you're moving your family down here and you're going to stay for a while and you don't really care that much about selling in the next couple of years or 3 or 4 years even, and it will change your lifestyle significantly, then buy now. But if you're just coming down to say, well, I watched on HGTV how to flip houses.
Right,
Let's
yes.
go buy a house and I'll put $30,000 in it and make $100,000 on it. You're an idiot. Now,
Now that's some straight talk, Jim. I really appreciate that. You don't hear that much from real estate agents.
well, you're not going to hear it from real estate agents because
They're self-serving
they
a lot of
want
times.
to sell stuff, and that's why real estate salespeople are out of all different industries. We're like number 15 in trustworthiness,
Let me guess.
right
Below attorneys and
and
car
and
salesmen.
used salesmen, used car salesmen. And that's been going on for the last 20 years, and we haven't changed 3 or 4 points in that amount of time. So when you're talking to a client as a real estate agent, they're expecting you to say that it's always a great time to buy and it's always a great time to sell.
But it can't be both, Jim.
It can't be both, and what I just read to you may be
A sign of things to
bullshit.
come. Or it could be complete bullshit.
Well, I don't think it's complete bullshit because I got this from a whole bunch of different sources, as well as being in Vancouver a few months ago and witnessing this bubble that is happening, and also having friends and relatives in every major bubble city in the country, and seeing what's happening and seeing how much income it takes to buy a house in LA or San Francisco, and finding out that if the market goes down 10 or 15%, these people that are making payments that they can't afford really can't afford those payments, and now the house is worth less
So
or worthless.
yeah.
And so then they will have to be selling it, and that will cause a lot of problems.
So for agents, would you say that this would be a good time to sharpen your skills and maybe start learning about the things that we can see in the future with short sales in the future, the HELOC adjusted? I know that's definitely a factor in what's going on with our market. I've noticed a handful of more short sales. Do you think we're going to see more of it?
Oh, absolutely, without question. But advice for an agent is
Yeah. Well, they can
an
now.
agent, one word, they can focus. And I go back to what I started saying today, that people buy based on the size of the body of water that they want to be near. So if the second thing I said was buy as an investment, even if you were buying to live in it, think about when you're going to sell it. A piece of property, if you can afford it on the Gulf of Mexico, will appreciate much higher than a property not on the Gulf of Mexico. So, and a property on the Barrier Islands, anywhere on the west coast of Florida, will appreciate more than any property. Fact. So, if you're going to focus, the main purpose of a real estate agent is to gather and transmit knowledge. How are you going to gather and transmit knowledge in St. Pete Beach if you don't focus on St. Pete Beach? So if you're out focusing on somewhere else, you don't have the time to focus on the big body of water or that it's supposed to.
So the advice to the agents would be to focus in a geographical area or a niche in the market that they would fit into?
A niche can be a geographical area, or can be the type of property: condos, apartment buildings, single-family houses, multi-family stuff, all kinds of different niches. Yes,
It would be wise for them to become familiar with the short sale process. Do you think that that's worth the time?
no, not yet, because we're not facing short sales until somebody writes the article about the U.S. that I just read about Canada, and it is inevitable that that article will be written. And I don't know whether that will be tonight or next month or in 6 months, but I would bet that it will be within that time frame.
Because that's my next question. I was going to say, where do you see this market in a year from now? If you could just have your crystal ball in front of you and you could say, what do you think? Do you think we're going to be in about the same position? Or are we going to be, a 2 to 3 month supply of inventory is simply, heavily favoring the seller.
Well,
We know 6 months is stable.
a crystal ball would have within it the answer to the question.
So let's see.
But the crystal ball that we are looking at has this wizard behind the screen that is controlling what is happening to the crystal ball. And that gets into supply and demand, and the supply of money is controlled by forces that are controlling the crystal ball. So by rights, we get a downturn in the market and the economy, a cleansing of the economy about every 10 years. So that would have put the next recession starting about 2012. But we invested so much money to keep the economy going that it's put it off till now, and may put it off for a while longer. But since nobody knows the top or the bottom of the market, forget about buying or selling there. If you have been thinking of selling, it is definitely a seller's market. And since no one knows the top, this little article I just read you just said that the top of the Canadian market has already been surpassed, and we're going into a bubble bursting scenario in Canada. And the U.S. is just one border away from what's happening in Canada. There are buddies, there are investors, there are the people that eat in our restaurants, there are the people that we need. And what happens in Canada is ultimately going to happen here. It doesn't look like it will happen immediately here, but it could happen.
Well, a lot of sellers are kind of on the fence, and they're saying, well, I'd like to sell, but maybe in the next 3 years. If a seller came to you and said, Jim, I'd like to sell my property. I think I need to get out in the next 3 years. What would you tell them?
I would say, why do you have to get out in the next 3 years?
They're downsizing. The property is too big, they're retiring. And they said, you know what, I'd like to go into something smaller, less maintenance,
Sell yesterday.
Sell yesterday? Oh my goodness, really? So that's on the market now.
I have the unique privilege of working as a real estate agent. I have a background of working as a manager. And I learned much more as a real estate agent than I ever did as a manager. I talk to people every day.
Yeah.
And they keep, when we are uncertain about what's happening, we tend to do nothing.
Yes, and just wait.
Yeah. So everyone that I talk to, or 90% of the people that I talk to, by the time they talk to me, they've already thought about selling. And they want to know whether they should be selling now or wait.
Yeah.
Depending upon their situation, I advise them mostly to sell.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in unique areas like the Barrier Islands where you have flood insurance challenges coming up. You're in an old house. The standard thing that I hear is my kids don't come down from New Jersey. They got student debt. They got credit card debt. They can't find a job. They don't like it down here. They don't want to move here. The house is old. The house is too big. Martha and I can't stand it here anymore. It's too hot.
Yes.
All this other stuff. But they're saying, but I have to find something else. And there's no inventory.
And the question is, where are they going?
Where are they going?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to sell, but then what happens to them? What would you tell them? Would you recommend that the dirty R word, do they rent?
It's not a dirty R word.
Oh, good. Okay, so let's hear it. Would that be your advice?
If I were a person that was downsizing,
yes,
I would not buy anything. I would rent for a year.
Okay.
But I would rent with an option to buy.
Oh, so like a home partners kind of program. So if you wanted to buy it, you could.
A home partners program would be perfect. And I'd try that. But then the thing that the sellers tell me is I can't even find any rentals because the rentals are too high.
I think the home partners opens up that door for so many people.
It does.
It really does.
So home partners is a great reason to do that. But what about the people that can't qualify for home partners or don't want to, and we want them to rent and sell their house, but they can't find any rentals. What can they do?
They're gonna, if they can't work with home partners, well, maybe lease options, seller finance,
Perfect.
maybe.
Perfect.
I mean,
All right, so if you're
but
gonna
that's
do,
only 10% of our market. That's just such a little slice.
well, it's
We're
funny that
already a little slice.
prices are going up
Yeah.
and there's very little inventory.
Yes.
But a lot of houses are sitting on the market. Why do you think?
They're overpriced. I mean, it's either condition or price. In this case, I would say most of them are sitting because of the price.
Okay, so
They missed the mark.
let's take a house that's sitting because of the price, and we go in and we say, I'll tell you what, Mr. Seller, I will rent this house from you for X number of dollars for 1 year, and I will do that if I can enter into a contract with you to pay you a certain price for it after a year, but I'm going to rent it for a year.
Okay, so lease option.
Yep. What is the advantage for that seller to do that?
Well, he's going to get some income to cover his expenses and the carrying cost of the property if he's already moved out. You know, he's stroking a check every month for the insurance and the taxes at the least, and in some cases the mortgage as well. So it would alleviate some of the financial burden from it.
Okay, what's he going to think about renting it about the renter that says, I'm going to buy it in a year?
Well, he's going to feel good about that because I think it would at least make him know after he's been on the market. Let's assume the guy's been on the market for over a year.
Okay.
You know, I mean, if he's been on the market for a year and he hasn't gotten his buyer yet, he's going to feel good at least knowing that the tenant would take care of the property and that the tenant's intention is to own it. And usually somebody who's going to be owning a property is going to take better care of it than somebody who's just a tenant. You know, he would think that my property would be in good hands, and at the end of this, I'm going to have a transaction that's going to close.
Okay, let's say that you were representing the seller and it's your listing. And a guy comes in and says, okay, I'm going to rent your house for $2,000 a month and I'll pay you 90% of what you want in 1 year on an option. What would you talk to the seller about that you're representing as a single agent? What should he do this deal, or what should he be aware of?
Well, you should be aware of this option and that the gentleman may walk. So you might lose your buyer. Okay, so that's one of the things that you're up against. You could potentially lose that buyer. And I would recommend getting a hefty deposit. And I would want it to be non-refundable.
Okay, so if he puts some money up first and last month and he walks from that, if he walks
That's
from
pretty
that-
minor. I would want more of a substantial deposit.
Okay, what if the market happens to go way, way up in the next year while he's renting? You're representing him,
Ooh,
and do you think you have to bring up that scenario that the market may go way up?
absolutely. I think as a single agent, we're obligated to show both sides of the possibilities.
Okay, so
We do need to really protect
if
our
the
sellers.
market goes way, way up and this guy's locked in, your renter's locked in to buy it at 10 or 15% of your listed price now,
Yeah,
price goes up 15%, you have to sell it.
right. You're contractually obligated.
Okay, so what if you're representing the buyer?
Okay. So now if I'm representing the buyer,
Why is it a great deal for a buyer and not a really great deal for the seller?
because he has the option and he can walk. If the market is going in his direction, he's got himself a deal. If it isn't, he can walk.
Okay,
And
so if we're representing the buyer, a lease option is a great way to find a property that hasn't been selling, lock it in at a price, move in because the seller is going to trust you to take care of the property better than you would if you were just a
a tenant,
renter.
yes,
So it sounds like a
really good deal for the
good
buyer.
deal for the buyer, but not such a good deal for the seller.
No, the seller's taking on some well, possible drama. He could end up, like you said, if the market goes up, he could be in some trouble.
Well, what if the market turns like the Canadian market is turning?
Ooh. Well, again, the buyer, it's still good for the buyer. It's it's really not the best deal for the seller.
Might it be, under that circumstance, why might it be a good deal for the seller? Let's say the market were to crash as quickly as it looks like Canada's crashing.
Oh gosh. Because he's got somebody in there that wants the property that is going to take care of it, and at least he's going to have his expenses covered for a year.
And what do you think is going to happen to the buyer that the price goes way down and the buyer can't afford to buy it because he's thinking that it's going to go way down again and he's renting it?
Yeah, he's going to walk.
Or
he's going to renegotiate that price. He's going to come back in.
He's going to keep renting.
Why not?
In which case the seller now has a renter maybe for 2 years or 3 years.
Which is covering his expenses as opposed to it just sitting on the market vacant.
Okay, so in some cases it could be a great deal for the seller.
Yeah.
And a great deal for the buyer.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely.
So what are we to do as an agent?
A lot of these overpriced listings, we tend to be addressing these options with them.
Yeah.
You know.
So
that's the only reason that stuff's sitting on the market now is simply price.
So the good agent that's going to make it in the down market is going to be the agent that can gather and transmit the best, truest knowledge to the client.
How do you combat agents that go in with an overinflated price and they come to a seller and they say, for example, let's say it's a $1.5 million property and you know it to be $1.5 million with your expert knowledge of the beach and it's land on the Gulf, right? And another agent comes in and says, I'm going to get you 1.9.
Yeah.
And how do you combat that when you're talking to the seller? And as an agent, like you said, to transmit knowledge, what would you say to make them understand that you really are looking out for their best interests? Especially when you see stuff that is overpriced sitting on the market for 700-800 days sometimes, Joe.
You would use what we call a strategic pricing analysis, and you'd understand what it is. And what it is that a lot of us don't understand, it is a factual account of the market for this guy's house at a given point in time, which is the time that you are creating it now. So you would have factual information about that lot being worth $1.5 million by 5 properties that have sold for $1.5 million that are most likely. So the other agent that said it's worth $1.9 million is proven wrong.
Okay.
But the strategic pricing analysis also has an outside end that may be $1.7 million, which are called expired listings.
Right.
And a current on the market listed 5 properties of what people can look at today.
Maybe 1.6, 1.7.
Maybe 1.6,
Yeah.
maybe 1.7. Maybe the solds are 1.5, maybe the expireds are 1.9. Well, what if the guy wants to list it at 1.9?
As long as he understands where he falls, I think that's fair. But I think it's really unfair to tell somebody that they can get 1.9 when nobody's paid more than 1.5 for it.
Okay, so in some cases, you may take a listing in the expired list.
Yes, but if you've educated the seller and that they understand that their property will sit on the market and probably not be viewed by many people.
But we would possibly take that.
I think we should. I mean, as long as he's educated and he understands where he is. I mean, it's our job to transmit the facts. And so if we're giving him the truth, then and he chooses to price his property and expired, then that's his decision, and we should, do our best to encourage him to, compete if that is what he indeed wants to do and actually sell.
Okay, so we as agents are representing a party, the
Yes.
buyer or
Or
a
seller.
seller. In some cases, as a transaction broker, which we disclosed. But just the things that we've talked to today that are uncertain things, we see trends coming up.
Yeah.
And we have ways to talk to a seller and ways to talk to a buyer depending upon whether we represent them as single agents. So my recommendation is to stay away from the transaction broker part of this unless we have to do. And in most cases, we don't have to. Which could be said to cut our income in half. But in trying times like we're coming into, in my opinion, representing the interests of a party, because if the market crashes, like this is indicating is happening in Canada, then people really need us to represent their best interests. And if I am an agent that focuses on beach properties and I try to represent somebody downtown St. Pete, then I'm not doing the best service for that person. And that's hard for agents to understand because trust is a currency in the future.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And this is a tough business to earn the trust of a client because it's the biggest purchase you make.
Absolutely. So I got a couple of good takeaways from this today, Jim. I
Did you
mean,
get all the questions in?
I did. I got through all my questions. Thank you. I guess the biggest takeaway I got is if you're even remotely on the fence about selling, Dad, that's you. Now's the time to put the house on the market.
Okay, what if I'm wrong? And Dad puts the property on the market.
And then it goes up 20% next month?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to smack.
Is there anything that would happen that would make property go up 20% next month?
Even a less supply.
There's not a thing that I could
Think of it's going to cause that
cause that much of an
increase in that amount of time.
So let me end with the sayings. I think I hit most of them, but they all kind of tie in together. This is real beach talk, but it has to do with waterfront community type properties, whether it be on the East Coast, Jacksonville, Miami here, or whatever. So under all is the land. So as real estate agents, you've got to factor in the price of the land when you're pricing a house. So if people want a really nice house for a low price, go to a place where the land is low.
Riverview.
Yeah, or Ellsworth.
Okay. Or South
Since
St.
nobody knows the top of the bottom of the market, forget about buying or selling there. So just by having our nearest neighbor experiencing what they're experiencing right now and have been experiencing for the last 17 years,
Right.
success leaves clues. So what is happening there very well might happen here. Since bubbles don't deflate, bubbles burst. Whenever this happens, it will happen very quickly. When others are fearful, this is another
This is my
Warren
favorite
Buffett.
Buffett quote.
When others are fearful, be greedy.
When others are greedy, be fearful.
So right now,
You'll notice
It's a good
everybody's
time.
in.
to be greedy or fearful,
Fear.
everybody's fearful. It's the time to be greedy.
You
Put
think?
your house on the market.
Oh, put your house on the market, and that way I would say yes for sell, but not for the buy, not for the buy-in.
Not for the buy. Unless you find a good investment property that will give you a return on your investment.
Which we talked about earlier. Yeah.
Buy with resale in mind if possible. It's an emotional buy when you're buying for your family, but think about when you want to sell.
But real estate held long over term is always a good investment.
Yeah, real estate held long enough always appreciates in value, especially waterfront real estate.
So, for those that do have long-term vision, just hold.
Yeah. Here's another good one. When you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. The majority is thinking right now that the market is going to continue to go up.
Everybody's flipping.
So I'd be thinking, when people are thinking it's a great time to buy, sell.
Got
I
it.
think it's a great time to sell.
Bye.
That's the basis of the stock
Jim,
market.
that's some really good advice today. I really appreciate it.
But I got what? I got two more.
Two more. Okay, hit us.
And we have a couple more. The laws of supply and demand govern real estate sales and almost anything else.
Oh, yeah.
The more properties on the market, the lower the prices. The fewer properties on the market, the higher prices. The anomaly right now is that with the inventory dropping, prices are not increasing like they should be according to supply and demand. There's a dysfunction in the market right now, and we don't know what's going to happen. But we just got an indication from Canada about what might happen here.
Which is a great opportunity for agents. The smart ones are really going to be able to make even more money. And certainly opens a lot of doors for them.
How does an agent become a smart?
Well, you got to come and you got to work and you got to learn.
You
You got to educate yourself and you got to be focused.
people come to Florida for water, or
Yes.
closest to water.
And taxes.
And prices are geared to the size of the water that you buy. Okay, so this could be construed as a very negative session, or it could be construed as a very positive session.
Jim, I see it as very positive.
Is it very positive for real estate agents?
Absolutely. There's
Why?
a lot of opportunities coming their way.
And what do they have to do to take advantage?
Focus on a market area and become an expert.
What are the benefits of someone? Why should someone buy in this market?
I see it for long-term holds and to take advantage of cheap money. That's just,
Excellent. To take advantage of cheap money, which is still available,
yes.
right? And if you plan on buying for your family to hold it for a while,
Exactly. If this is going to be a long-term investment, you plan on holding this for the next 20, 15 years, then I think that you can't go wrong.
you're going to hold it for 15 or 20 years, you'll see another downturn and another upturn in that time. If the economy does like it's done for the last 200 years.
But if you're in at 3.75 on the money, you might just be doing better playing the interest rate game.
You might do. So, good time to sell.
Great time to sell. If you're even remotely considering selling, please get in touch with us.
And not such a good time to buy unless it's really good for your family, long-term hold, or you get a good return on your investment, which there still are.
There are good investments out here over in Madeira Beach for sure, guys. Many to still be had.
So,
Thank
with
you
that,
for your time today.
we are done, and we will see.
Say bye,
you next
Cooper.
month. Anybody that wants a copy of this article that I just read to you, send me an email. I'll send you a copy.
Cool. We'll send you out any information you guys want. Thank you for being with us today.
And Tabitha's dad, put your house on the market.
Hey, Dad, if you're even thinking about it, now's the time to build a little cottage. Mwah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.